Hi guys, Dr. Lester here, and today I'd like to take a second to talk to you a little bit more about this idea that we've talked about before in some of the minute mindsets, but it's really this idea of emotional chiropractic, we'll call it that, but it's this idea of what does emotion and trauma that is trapped look like in your system, and what does it mean to get it out of your system? Now, this is a fairly important topic because it is kind of underaddressed in the world at large. When we deal with trauma, first of all, we tend to isolate it to that event. We don't extrapolate it or see the reverberations that it has across our lives. We kind of just say, like, this was that event and put it in a box and it's fine. Excuse me, my nose itches. But that's not really how trauma works. Trauma definitely has these huge, for lack of a better word, reverberations throughout your life that truly impact every single thing in your life. More so depending on the intensity of the trauma and, of course, the longevity of the trauma and stuff like that. But it really affects the way you think, the way you feel, the way you treat other people, your belief systems about the world at large, and it really does get stuck in your body. Now, this idea of it getting stuck in your body is really, it comes kind of from acupuncture. There's a lot of studies regarding this, and they kind of relate to chakras and all sorts of things, but let's just keep it simple. So in acupuncture, if you have, let's say, anger, and it gets stuck in your body from some event, right? And also keep in mind that lots of traumas have more than one, wow, words are hard, more than one emotion associated with them. So it gets pretty complicated. But anyways, let's say it's anger, and your body is storing that for whatever reason, and it stores it always consistently in your liver. That's where anger is stored according to acupuncture. Now, can things get stored in other places? Absolutely. So for example, if you broke your arm and that's what made you angry, or you got angry about, or whatever, then could it be stored in your arm? Absolutely. But as a general rule, in terms of acupuncture, anger is stored in your liver. So how do you get it out? What do we do about that? Acupuncture would say that you would also see lots of liver manifestation things. So like liver detox issues, or I don't know, like liver cirrhosis, or whatever else you wanted to, whatever else you could come up with, I guess, for that. But also things along your liver meridian, which is a meridian. Meridians are these invisible energetic lines that run kind of all over your body in all sorts of patterns and whatnot. And for whatever reason, certain ones are associated with certain organs, and they have an impact on those organs. And how they figure this stuff out is beyond me, but that's a topic for another day. But anyways, so as you're trying to understand where these things are in your body, this anger, how do we get it out? What do we do about it? Do we just have to remember the event or get over the event or whatever? Well, it's not usually quite that simple. So a lot of it you can mentally cope with and think that you've moved on and you've let it go, and you didn't. And it didn't have anything to do with you, but your body couldn't let it go. Your body didn't go through the same thing that your mind went through for whatever reason. Some people argue that it's because during that moment, you kind of dissociated, like your mind split from your body to cope with something. So if that's the case, then there's no way that your body could have been on the same page with coping with it that your mind was in at that same time. Does that make sense? So it's important then to go back and say, okay, body, it's your turn to go through this. It's your turn to cope with this and let this go. So what does that look like? There are lots of great techniques for this. And usually it takes more than one, unfortunately. So, of course, there is self-talk, which is an amazing tool that you can use. There is self-help, all of those things as well. But more than that, you can really get outside of yourself and get some actual help from outside, which would be like talking to somebody, talk therapy, right? That's super important. And there's a reason why it's been around for so long, because it's important. But you can also do super nice things for yourself, like massages and self-love and all of the things. And those are amazing. Gratitude is important. But what if all of that isn't enough, right? Those are a lot of mind things, right? What about your body? How do you get it out? So there is some really cool research out there that I encourage you to look up. There are all sorts of different chiropractic techniques for getting emotions, or for dealing with emotions, because emotions are definitely a major stressor on the body that we underestimate. So it's important to acknowledge those things. And there are techniques in chiropractic associated with those things, as well as in acupuncture and whatnot. So as you are trying to figure out what technique works for you, I highly encourage you to look at the different chiropractic techniques and look at some of the research with it. But anyways, so the simplest way to put it would be that you need an outside stimulus to kind of shove the emotion out of where it's stuck, enough to get it like circulating and circulating in your body so you can actually get it out, right? So one of the best ways to do that is through chiropractic adjustments. Why? Because it's kind of a very visceral, arguably violent, force. And by violent, I'm mostly joking. Actually, I'm really joking, but it feels like this release, just an incredible release in general. And that kind of mechanical, physical stimulus with that pow kind of release is super important to getting things moving. And in terms of emotions that are stuck in your body, it's really, really a cool special type of release, which I will talk about in just a second, because I also want to bring up acupuncture is a great way too, because it's obviously much more gentle. But you can use e-stim and whatnot to help stimulate some of that. E-stim is also a great way, but really any sort of physical input or touch is super important to helping those things get out of your system. So now, what does that look like? What does getting out of your system look like? So one of my favorite things in the world is chiropractic emotional adjusting. And the reason for that is because it's incredibly powerful. I've seen it just help so many people. And it's just this really intense, beautiful moment. So what that looks like is, sorry, I have to switch hands here. Is you have this pain in this area, and for whatever reason, it needs to be released with an emotion. And sometimes you are aware of that and I'm not aware of it, or sometimes I'm aware of it and I tell you, and then as you think about it, it helps release it. But it usually is associated with some sort of flashback or some sort of feeling that you felt in that moment. I've had some people that it described, and myself included, very visual flashbacks where you are reliving the experience, but you feel safe this time, or sometimes you don't feel safe. It just kind of depends on what it is. But it usually passes fairly quickly, and you feel the relief from it because your body just let it go. Sometimes it is a much more simple response where it's like your body is just shaking and shaking and shaking and trying to let it go. And clearly it's that fight or flight response that we've talked about before. But your body's trying to shake it out, like tremble it out. And that is, again, a very physical, visceral reaction to get something out, which is really, really cool because it actually really works. And then people will have this experience where they're okay afterwards. Can't even tell you how many people I get that come in and cry on my table. Not because I broke them, but because they had these incredible emotional reactions, releases. And that is really powerful. And it tells you how much pain and scar tissue and emotions were stuck in things. And they'll tell you it's not that this adjustment hurt. It's not that I did something to them that, made them feel insulted or like they were injured in any way. It's just all of a sudden there was this major release. And a lot of the times, I know for myself, my body will have this response where all of a sudden, like, I'm either shaking or crying, and I'm like, but I'm fine. Really, I'm fine. Like, in my head, I'm okay, but I feel like my body is having this response that needs to get out, but I'm really okay. Like, in my head, I feel normal. But clearly that's not what's happening on the outside. But it's a very powerful thing, and I've seen it done with acupuncture, and I've seen it done with chiropractic, and just so many things. Reiki, those kinds of things. So I really want you to think about, when you're going through some of these traumas, what impact is it having on your body? So one last thing to add to that idea is, let's say that the anger you were feeling before, remember we said that it was hiding in the liver. So what effects are we seeing on your liver? So which came first? I don't know. Does the liver the problem, or is it the anger that was the problem, or was it the trauma that caused the anger? Who knows? But we are currently seeing that the liver and anger, and there are now some issues coming up with the liver that need to be treated as a condition. And so the question becomes, if we treat those, does it reduce the anger? Or if we treat the anger, can it reduce the condition? And the answer is usually we should treat both. But, oh goodness. But it really depends on the person, and it really just depends on like what's going on in the system. But it's a really, really cool idea, and it has some support behind it, some really pretty good support. So I highly recommend that as you're looking at some of these and thinking about, like, what are my dominant issues? What are the things in my life, health-wise, that might be conditions that I need to address? And then on top of that, what are the emotions that have been dominant in my life, and the emotions from certain traumas that have been dominant in my life? And maybe we can find some sort of connection with them, which is really, really powerful, because I truly, truly believe that the biggest stressor that we go through as people is emotional. And and it's also so underappreciated and so undertaken care of. And if we can't deal with these things, if we can't come to a place where we can say, you know what, it is okay for me to have emotional healing. It is okay for me to let this go or move on, or to not hold myself to impossible expectations, or to always compare myself to others, or all of the things, right? If we can't come to terms with some of these things, then what does that do to your body? One of my favorite examples, which I'm going to end this little spiel on, is that there is all sorts of documented evidence about how if you talk nicely to plants, they grow better, which is kind of a weird concept, but we do that anyways, right? We talk nicely to kids, we talk nicely to animals, all of the baby talk and stuff, but it truly does have an impact on their systems. So if all you're doing ever is talking mean to yourself because of all of these traumas or all of these belief systems that have now been changed to make you bitter, not better, then what does that do for your health? What are the ramifications for that? I'm not even just talking about like the stress that you're constantly putting on yourself, or the lack of sleep, or the anxiety, or any of those things. We're not even getting into, like, are you drinking too much caffeine, or, blah, 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 whatever. We're just talking about the emotional side effects of some of these things, of just talking nice to yourself, of the mindsets in your head that you can't really escape from, that you don't super think about a lot. If those are negative, if those are bad, and that's the foundation of all of it, like that's where you spend most of your time, right? Then what are the impacts potentially on your entire health system? So food for thought. And I want to leave you with, if you come in and cry on my table, it's okay. It happens all the time. It's a very safe place. And it's just really, really powerful. There's nothing more beautiful, in my opinion, than truly having this profound healing moment, and a safe space to be able to do those things. I can tell you some of my most amazing and powerful adjustments were, I guess they looked hard and ugly from the outside, because they were definitely lots of crying and stuff like that afterwards. But not because they were painful, again, but because they were this powerful emotional release. And it's significant. It's really significant. I can't even tell you, I've had my atlas done, your C1 vertebra, and I swear I had like an exorcism with that one. I had my gums and teeth adjusted with AK, which is already a weird thing to talk about. Ask me about it some other time. But I had some major flashbacks with that one. With my jaw, I had some major flashbacks from an abusive situation. So it's just really a cool area of things to begin to address as a whole system. And since we don't fully understand any of these things anyways, we might as well look at it from a whole system perspective and what that could possibly mean for health and healing. And I kind of see it as whether or not it is a placebo effect is fairly irrelevant, because if it's healing you, and if it's helping, and if it truly has the power that we think it might, then why wouldn't you try it, again, but not all. I should leave with this one. I keep saying it's the last one. This one's really the last one. But not all emotional releases or healing is actually crying or anything like that. Some of them is laughing and just feeling elated. Some of it's some angry outbursts, all sorts of things. But it doesn't matter what it looks like. And some of it can actually be that you're just exhausted afterwards. So it doesn't matter what it looks like, but I encourage you to feel safe in this journey as much as possible, and to definitely ask about it. And if you do happen to have one of those things on my table or on someone else's table, it's okay. It's really, truly beautiful, and it means that your body is finally getting rid of that shit. So definitely reach out if you need some support, or some, we can give some numbers or names to help you out wherever you are, and we'll go from there. Okay, I hope that was a little bit more clarification for you guys, because I know y'all have been asking a little bit of a ramble. My brain is tired. But I hope you guys have a good one. Thanks.